Change. The word alone can be challenging. How do we get started? Where will the change lead? Don't sit there and worry about it. Be the change. Welcome to Be the Change Radio. Host Christina Bloom has been a professional psychic and spiritual advisor for 20 years, offering psychic and mediumship readings for individuals and groups. She also teaches several classes in psychic development and metaphysics. In addition, she is an author who has published 2 books so far and is the co-owner of Moonbow Publications and Productions, LLC. Are you ready for that change now? Here is your host of Be the Change Radio, Christina Bloom.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Be the Change Radio. You're listening to us on WLTK-DB.com. I am your host, Christina Bloom, and I have a really great show for you tonight. We have a really fun guest, great conversation. Hello, Rez, Courtney, Lee. Thank you all for being here. Wait, you hold up a second. Courtney, you're on an Alexa device, and it's hard to comment. Hi, Amy. Hi, Stephanie. Hi, Jamie Lynn. Okay, that's going to be interesting because Courtney comments a lot, so it'll be fun. All right, so I have some announcements for you. The time has come. Fairy Festival. I can't wait. I'm leaving Thursday to go to New York for the Fairy Festival. It's actually the Elizabethtown Fairies and Magical Creatures Festival, and that is on this coming Saturday. But before then, tomorrow evening at 7:30, I will be doing a Facebook Live. And stick with me, folks, because that Lionsgate thing kicked a lot of butts, mine included. So the topic is holy shift. Wow, that was tough. So we're going to be doing that. And then on Friday night, this coming Friday night, I'm doing an in-person channeling at Gem Goddess Emporium in Plattsburgh, New York. And I will learn to talk before the show's over. That is $35 at the door, cash only. And that's going to be there's going to be some amazing information coming through. So if you happen to be in Northern New York, this is somewhere you want to be Friday night at 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. All right. And then Sunday afternoon, I am back at Gem Goddess Emporium. Why can I not say that word today? And I will be doing an introduction to intuitive you, personal and psychic development. So that's from 1 to 3 p.m. That's Eastern time. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, all Eastern time because I will be in New York. So we have that coming up. Let me see. Oh, while I'm out there, I'm going to be on From Beyond radio show. Oh, the From Beyond radio show is going to be released. I've already done that show, but From Beyond Radio, I was interviewed by Glenn Bottis, and I am going to be co-hosting From Beyond in the UK one weekend or one Monday a month. So our premiere is the 21st. On the 30th, you know what? I could talk when I got up this morning. I really could. Okay. On the 30th, I will be a guest on the Self-Care Show with Deidre Sanford. And then jumping into September, on September 9th, I will be at the Soul and Synergy Fair in Stevens Point at the Holiday Inn. An online class on the 13th of September at 7:30. And that is going to be aura reading. So that'll be a fun class. Hope you all show up for that one. I just posted the event today on Facebook, so you should be able to find that. On the 16th, I will be back with Soul and Synergy, but this time we're going to be in Ashland. So on September 16th, I will be in Ashland at the Psychic and Wellness Fair up there. And let's see, Great Lakes Paranormal Conference. Yeah, we cannot forget that one at the Haunted Glenbeulah School. I will be doing a couple of presentations and a paranormal investigation, so make sure you're there. And they have tickets available for that on the Facebook event for Great Lakes Paranormal Conference. There are still some tickets available. I know that it was starting to run low. So if you want to go, you better go check that out. On the 30th, I will be in the Upper Peninsula in Lake Linden, Michigan, back at Wild Blue Wander UP. And they're doing a People's Celebration Psychic and Wellness Fair. So I'm super excited about that. I'll be doing a gallery reading at that one too. And I think that one runs 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. But that again is Eastern time. So if you happen to be in the Central time zone, I believe that would be like 9 to 5. All right. And drum roll, please. I have a new podcast coming out. Yay. I will be doing it with my friend Resnick, who is in the chat room tonight. We are going to be launching our Red Road Paranormal podcast on November 2nd. So, and we will also be on Haunted Voices, both of us on Haunted Voices on November 2nd. So super excited about that. And then there's a lot going on in October too, but I really want to hit the main point here. So November 18th and 19th, Moonbow Metaphysical Expo. And that is going to be at the Haunted Hotel Saranac in Saranac Lake, New York. And that is for both days, 10 to 5, I believe it is. Oh, wow. That was a mouthful. Okay. So I am going to bring on Gregg Gonzales. And we were a little bit late because we had some technical issues, but it's all good now because Gregg is with us. So come on out, Gregg. Hi.
Hey, how are you, Christina? Good to be here.
I'm good. Thank you for being here. I know it was a little bit of a struggle getting you in there. Let me just see what we got going here. Okay, let's see. That was between Todd and Brianna. Okay. we have a secondary producer tonight. So she's learning how to do producing, and we're glad to have her on board. So welcome, Brianna. All right, Gregg, tell us about, I took the class. I know what it is, and I can't remember the words in order.
That's okay.
Speakeasy.
You got it. You're almost there. The speakeasy method is the entirety of it. That's what it is.
Okay. Yeah, that was a really cool online thing you did there, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you.
I really learned a lot. I just want to say hello to some people in our room here. We have Jennifer and Lorena and Gail, Stephanie, Amy, Jamie Lynn. Okay, I think we got everybody here. All right. We have a really active chat room, and I really like to keep these guys involved because they come up with some of the best questions I never would have thought of. So
I could use their help with my work then.
Awesome. Tell us about the speakeasy method, because I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, when I think about my work, it's so much about connection for me and just creating this. I think of it as a modality, no different than, say, when I did massage and it was cranial sacral or kinesiology or deep tissue work. Like this is what I use to help to connect with people. But more importantly, it's to help people connect with themselves and each other. And the method is really designed to help with self-expression, to help people feel seen and heard. But it also is a fun, creative, artful space for people to tell stories and open up. And those stories can turn into books, they can be blogs, they can be TED Talks. These are just numerous things that I've helped people produce, because sometimes we struggle with sitting down to write. And I know for me, I created this method because I'm not a writer. I get self-critical, I self-edit, I don't make the time to do it. Yeah. But if you ask me a question about what it is that I want to write, I could talk to you for an hour. And so that self-expression and that openness is what I want to capture for people, and doing it in a very structured way to then record, transcribe, hand back the work that you've done for it to eventually become that message that your audience and the world needs to hear. So it's really just a story production platform, but more than anything, it's really about teaching people how to connect.
I love that. So when we were talking about what we were going to talk about tonight, connection was one of those things. And I find that having this format, this radio show format, really helps people connect. Like everybody in the chat room has kind of created their own community. You know, like they'll just, if you look over, they're having their own conversation, you know, like they've really created their own community, which I love.
Yeah.
I love that that's how people connect. And there are so many different ways that we can connect. And Sylvia and Sandy joined the room. Thank you. Hi, welcome. And Keith, I don't know if you're still in here or not, but if you are, hi. He pops in, says hello and have a great night, and then he goes to bed. So
Good night, Keith.
Because he's East Coast. He's East Coast, so he does that. I love the connection part, and I think that that's one of the beautiful things that came out of the pandemic. If I can say that without people throwing tomatoes at me, is, you know, we learned new ways to connect. We learned new ways to expand our circles and to expand our trust and how to connect with people in different ways. So I think that that's a really important thing to bring to light sometimes, is that people get really down on, you know, computers and too much screen time and all of that. But it really does help us connect at a deeper level sometimes.
And it was during the pandemic that this work really evolved and grew. I actually tell people that it was because of the pandemic that I felt like it was capturing lightning in a bottle, because people were craving connection, but we were isolated and separated. And so getting on camera, doing Zoom calls became the norm. Whereas before, whenever you'd say to someone, hey, would you like to connect? It was usually phone calls or text messaging. Asking to do a video call, people would just run away and be like, oh, I couldn't possibly do that. So when I created the speakeasy method around the time that everything really went into lockdown, not only were people just more comfortable getting on camera, but they were craving that feeling of sharing and expressing and doing something. And so the first iterations of my story projects were to help elderly senior citizens capture their story and create content that they could share with their family members and loved ones, because they were fearful that they wouldn't be able to see them and that they wouldn't be able to share their lessons and words of wisdom. So I was just giving my work away and giving them all of the recordings, the transcripts, everything, and just, this is for your family. This is legacy. So it grew from that desire to help them. And then it became, people were wanting to write books. And I'm like, I can help you do that. I want to create a blog. I can help you do that. So it just organically grew really from that time of lockdown.
That's amazing. That is really amazing. There's so many beautiful things that grew from that, in addition to all the horrible things that came about because of that. But there were so many beautiful things that grew from that, and not just the lockdown, but just once people realized, wow, I can do this. I think that's part of what made it take off so much, was that people realized, oh, I can do this. I don't have to have a degree in literature or publishing or whatever to be able to write a book. And I just love that. And what you said about working with older people during lockdown, that really hit home, because I know that there were a lot of people who weren't sure they were ever going to see people again. Yeah.
It was tragic. And for me to be able to create that space for these people who, you know, they would get on camera. I'm remembering one in particular where she's like, oh, I don't have anything of importance to share. You know, my life was pretty dull and whatever. And I'm just like, I would just ask her a question. And she just lit up and I think talked for like 30 minutes straight. And I literally saw her reverse age on camera. Just her vibrancy, her energy. She looked younger as she spoke. And then just reminding her of the magnitude of just your voice, your face, your words that we now can capture and treasure forever. That to me was just, you know, I don't even think I realized at the time how important it was. So it's really about just, I love capturing those magic moments in people. And people will say the most, I like to take the ordinary and make it extraordinary. And that's what I get to capture every day.
Yeah, divine guidance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
Courtney
the
got her
question.
phone back.
It's the, well, you know, I love asking people questions. And I think that when people feel safe and then there's a question that they can answer fully and honestly, people I mean, I've had strangers say, I'm telling you things I've never told anyone. And it's just an honor, to be able to hear that and to experience that. And then it's up to them. Like, do you want to keep this for yourself, or this could help somebody? Your story, your message, your experiences. So people see the bigger scope of how important their story really can be.
That's something else I wanted to touch on too, because we all have a story. And when we start talking to people, that's when we realize how much people connect through their stories.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this is overstepping, but could you give us an example of maybe like one question that you would ask someone who says, I don't really have anything, my life is boring?
So one of my favorite questions to ask people who will typically say, I don't have much of a story, if anything,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll just ask them, who inspires you and why? Like, just think of somebody in your life. It could be somebody living, could be someone no longer living. It could be a fictional character from a book, but just think of somebody famous, anyone. And then give me 3 qualities as to why they inspire you. What do they do? Like, what values do they have? And so they share and they open, because people can talk about other people as opposed to themselves sometimes. So they have that person, my mom, my dad, Oprah. And then they start explaining just what makes them so powerful and so amazing and so inspirational. And I'll just sit back and let them talk. And I'll remind them that no one could possibly have answered it the same way you just did. So the uniqueness in that. But when you share that, you're telling me so much about you, of the qualities that you admire in them. But these are qualities you either have or are wanting to strengthen in yourself. And so just to have people recognize that and to see that, again, it's that connection to self. And then they realize, wow, I do have a lot in me. I do have expression and art and emotions and experiences that no one else could possibly have. So just the magnitude of what people have to share from just a simple question like that it leaves me in awe. Honestly, like I literally just sit back in just amazement of people when they step into that space with me.
I love that. That is so beautiful. And I'm in awe listening to you, because I'm thinking about like maybe my grandparents or my mom, or, what would they talk about,
Yeah.
and it's amazing when you ask someone a question about themselves or something that's important to them, how much people just come to life. Like you said, you watched her get younger on camera.
Literally.
And literally watched, because faces brighten up and people smile and they sit up a little straighter. And
yeah, it's somatic. Your body goes through changes. I call it the angel's cocktail that's being concocted and mixed inside your body. So there's serotonin, oxytocin, endorphins. It's all of the good, the biological things that are happening in our brains and in our bodies that there's transformation and healing going on. But there's also just like the heart starts to beat a little bit more and more blood starts flowing. You literally see eyes just fill with light and they become expressive. And I see that as being no different than if I asked a question. I said, Christina, how do you define love? But rather than tell me or write it, I want you to go paint a picture or write a song or craft, create some, sculpture. So to me, when people use their voice, which is the most powerful instrument we all have, it's just self-expression that's no different. So I see it as every chance I get with people to remind them that you're an artist. When you express yourself openly like that, and you connect the head and the heart together, it's no different than when Taylor Swift goes and writes a hit song, or, someone paints a painting and puts it up in a gallery. This is your unique art, and your life and experiences and all that can be your art if people just shift the way they think about it and just express in however form that takes.
Oh, I like this. Jennifer said, I would love it if my grandparents had a book or even a journal of what they went through in their years. Oh, in their younger years.
Yeah.
Took me a minute to get through that. Yeah.
There's so much of when I talk to people and of any age, and we do just a little sample session and I record it and I give it back to them. I literally have to tell them, don't lose this. do not lose this. Put this somewhere where you know you have access to it, and maybe share it with a few people who you trust, because one of these days we're going to be gone.
Mm-hmm.
And to have that moment, if it's 5 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour of you just opening your heart and just sharing yourself in that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I think about
Yeah.
my grandmother, who I was extremely close to have her voice, to have her energy, to remind me of where I came from, who inspires me. That's the stuff. And again, people just, we knock ourselves down and we think, oh, it's just this little thing. It's not little to the people in your family and your loved ones close to you who could have that and always have that as a keepsake that you can't even put a price on it.
Yeah, that's a wonderful thing. I find myself being grateful that my son did so much of his stuff online, because I can still go to his YouTube page.
Without a doubt, it's the same thing.
So yeah, it's her, I'm not sure what that says. Voicemail, that's what it said. Okay, I still remember her voicemail message. Okay, because it said boo mail, and I was like, Courtney's autocorrect has gone crazy. Yeah, it is. Hi, Marilyn. Okay, so her internet is having issues and she keeps losing audio. That sounds familiar. Yeah, I really appreciate that too. Like when I can get people talking and get them talking about things that are important to them, and not just, whatever's going on so pop culture or whatever the case is. But it is really, I think it's just so important. The work that you do is so important to be able to give people a voice that they didn't know they had. Show people how important they are to those who love them. That is,
and to themselves too.
Yeah.
I think that to me is where it has to start, is that I am trying to shine a light on the magnificence and the amazing person that they are when they allow themselves to be themselves fully.
Okay.
Because I think that we spend so much of our days and our lives just feeling like we're being judged, and we don't want to sound wrong. We don't want to answer the question wrong. But there isn't a question I could ask anyone that they don't know the answer to.
Right.
It's just they need to feel safe. They need to feel seen and heard. And I said this on my webinar when you were on, is one of my favorite quotes that I use to describe my work is anything will give up its secrets if you love it enough. And so that's really what I'm trying to teach through this work, is that this isn't just my method to do story projects with you. This is something that now that you've experienced it, now go give it to your children. Now go give this to your loved one. Or better yet, give it to someone who's struggling, who needs to be seen and heard, who's going through a hard time. So I see this as like first aid, mental health, heart health, first aid, to help us connect to one another on just a real, kind, heart-centered basis that doesn't have to be about writing a book. It's just about connecting to ourselves.
Yeah, I love that. That is so beautiful. I don't understand this question, but maybe you will. At what part of at Dr. Gregg practice involves pharmaceuticals as a part of wellness? Is this something you do?
Nope, not me. I'd have to look at that. I
didn't think so. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's hard to see on your phone.
Yeah, I'm roughing it tonight.
Yeah, there you go. Hello, Facebook user. I don't know who the last person is that signed in because it just says Facebook user, but hello. Thank you for being here. Okay. Were you able to read this?
Yeah, I'm not part of any pharmaceutical anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Shoot, I wanted to make sure that if someone had a question, we don't miss it. And I think we got everybody. If I didn't get somebody, pop it back into the comments because you're too far up for me to scroll. When we're talking about connection, and I still have a lot of people who are my clients who, when they think of connection, they think of like romantic connection and where's my soulmate, and my answer is always look in the mirror, but that's another topic. Um, when people are talking about connection, and let's say you're working with someone who is not a grandparent and they have a story to tell, I'm sure it's the same kind of questions, but how do you approach it differently based on what they want to do with how they answer the questions? And I hope that made sense.
Well, I think I know what you're saying. So
Yeah.
my work, again, I help people write books, but that's not the only thing I do. And when I have people who maybe have a story to tell, but maybe it's they're just not sure. They're unsure about, is there an audience for this? Is this even something worth publishing? Because again, it comes into just self-doubt and criticism, and just we kind of knock ourselves down before we even have a chance to even just ask the question of what's possible. So that's really what I enjoy doing when I meet people for the first time, is just getting to, like, what's the story? What's it for? Why is it important? And then we can get into, who is it for? What's the message you want people to gain from it? And so in a lot of ways, I'm coaching people through this process of just getting to the story that they might have. Mm-hmm. And I've had people come on a discovery call and say, oh, I've got this little tidbit of my life that I think I'd like to talk about, because people are always saying, you need to write a book about that. But in their minds, it's like this.
Yeah.
But there's so much of your life that led up to that, and then the lessons you gained after that. So to me, that little novella that in their mind is like maybe 5 pages can now turn into 150, 200 plus, because we're getting such context and color and scenery around this scene that I'll bring questions in. And again, they know the answers. We're just building it and creating, and just so a lot of it is just helping people see themselves and their story clearer. And that's what I enjoy doing.
Yeah, I love that too. And I will tell people, you really need to share this story. And they're like, who's going to listen to me? Anybody who can relate is going to listen to you.
Well, and I'll ask them, I'll say, okay, knowing what your message is, what you would want people to gain and learn from that. Can you think of somebody in your life, or somebody just like an avatar, I guess, that something they're going through currently, that what you have to share can help them? And always they're like, yes, I can think of that person. And half the time it's them 20 years ago. And I will say, okay, that's who you're writing it for. And you, this is for you and that person. So for nothing else, if no one in the world touches your book or gets to access your story, but that one person does, and it motivates them and inspires them and potentially changes their life because of you stepping forward, wouldn't it be worth it? And they're always like, yeah. I'm like, so let's do it. Let's do it.
It's totally worth doing.
Yeah.
Even if someone just wants to take the recording that you set up with them in the discovery call and have it set aside to share with their families.
Totally.
Or to share with their families. And I think for that too, once they've been on camera like this, they're face to face, they're looking you in the eye, they're making eye contact, they're coming out of their shells, so to speak, and they're talking about the things that are important. I have literally seen people who get to that space. I don't know if they've worked with you or not, but have gotten to that space where they send that out as like a holiday card. I don't know when it was, 10, 15 years ago, when everyone started sending out letters like that everything they did that year. And people are doing it on video, which I think is even more personal.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that they're sharing their story like that.
It's such a great, I'm so glad you said that, because even in those simple discovery calls, I don't know, I get, the image I think of is when I see people, we're like icebergs. Just coming out of the water, we see this iceberg, but there's only about 10% of that we actually see. So like when you're at the grocery store, you meet people, you really only see just kind of what the exterior is, and this much. What I get to do in these discovery calls sometimes is flip the iceberg over, and we can go a little bit deeper. And that 90%, there's some darkness, there's some brokenness, there's some places that obviously need healing, but there's such beauty and experience and wisdom that only that person knows, only that person has ever done. And so to even just uncover just that little bit of that iceberg that's underneath the surface, and then to capture that and to show them that, and like you said, share it potentially with loved ones and be like, hey, what do you think about this? It's meaningful. It's priceless art that I see. And I'm not kidding when I think of these as art. You showing up in full expression like that is no different than doing any other form of artwork, because it takes the same amount of commitment, and you got to show up and you got to be authentic and express. So it's no different.
Yeah. The energy that goes into it is amazing.
Yeah. And people don't think they're doing anything. They're just talking, they're like, I'm just word vomiting. And I'm like, it's amazing. Don't beat yourself up over that. Like, that's part of your art form of self-expression. So I just tell people when they say that, like, I'm just word vomiting all over you, Greg. And I'm like, well, I'm behind you as you're hovered over the toilet, holding your hair back, rubbing your back. So just let it rip, because I don't care.
Let it rip.
Let it rip.
That's quite a visual. We're going to take
everybody.
Commercial.
I know. Sorry about that.
No, that's awesome. Thank you. We'll be right back, everyone. Thanks.
No matter the questions, Ellie Weisensell can help you find the answers. Ellie is a gifted intuitive and a natural energy healer, which she applies using the body code and emotion code healing systems, among others, to help you achieve balance for your best results. Are you looking for more clarity about which direction to follow with your life, health, or career? Let Ellie guide you. As a psychic, Ellie can provide clarity to the path you are on, so you may use your free will to change the direction of your life. Are you wanting to communicate with a loved one who's passed? As a certified psychic medium, Ellie Weisensell can connect you with your loved ones on the other side to facilitate healing or offer closure. To schedule your appointment with Ellie, look her up on Facebook at Ellie Weisensell Psychic Medium, or email her at ellieweisensell@gmail.com. That's Ellie Weisensell, Weisensell.
Hey, everyone. Welcome back. It is just about 33 minutes past the hour, and you are listening to Be the Change on WLTK. And I am your host, Christina Bloom, and I am here with Gregg Gonzales, and we are talking about connection and helping people connect with their own stories and helping people connect with their own histories. And I wanted to go back to something that you said about when we were talking about the iceberg and the 90% below the water that we don't see, with all of the brokenness and all of that. And it's healing that brokenness creates so much beauty for other people and for yourself too. I mean, we've all gone through things that we've had to, I forget what it's called, but that Japanese method of fixing cracks with gold.
Yeah.
And I know that there's a name for it, and I can't think of it right off the top of my head. Hi, Sherry. Thank you for joining us.
I think it's
Kintsugi. Oh, come on, Courtney. Let her rip. Yeah. So I knew someone was going to bring up Bill's Nuts. It's a snack food. Never mind. Anyway. So I love that you said that, though, because it's so important that people recognize how healing their own wounds can help other people heal their wounds.
Right.
It's so important that, and I know that in some previous generations, everyone was taught to hide everything. Don't show weakness. Your kids don't need to know what you did when you were younger, blah, 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 blah. But I think it's so important. I think it's so important that we can say this very hurtful thing happened and I was able to heal from it, and this is how I did it. I think that can just carry on to further generations, but also just to other people who may or may not even be related to you. You know?
Totally. One of my favorite questions is, I'll ask somebody, can you tell me about a time in your life when either your faith, beliefs, maybe even your physical stamina was severely tested, but because you went through that experience, it made you the person you are today, and it made you a better person? And a lot of times people are like, where do I even start? Or can I give you more than one answer? But just providing that, I see a question to ask like that as an opening. It's like opening a door and then they choosing to step through, which I've never had anyone say, oh, I can't answer that. But even a question like that, as powerful and as emotive as it can be for people, just bringing that to the surface and sharing that.
Right.
But not just highlighting the pain. Like, what did you learn from that? Why do you think that happened to you, at the time that it did? And so you're getting them to do almost like their own self-coaching on themselves to understand themselves better. Again, I'm just asking the question and I'm facilitating that safe space. They're the ones that are just bringing up, kind of going underneath, deep under that iceberg, choosing to go there. And yeah, there can be a flood of emotions, but that's releasing. That's it's like a knot that you have in your heart that gets a chance to open itself up just a little bit. And to be able to do that and for people to feel that, and then to share that so people can experience that and be like, it's okay for me to answer that question too, is extremely powerful.
It is. And let's talk about the importance of being able to hold a space for someone that's safe, because not everyone seems to have the ability to do that. So when you're holding a safe space for someone, that is sacred. That is something that, first of all, like I said, not everyone has the ability to do, or even that everyone wants to do. But the safety that you create allows people to do their own self-healing. And it is amazing how much self-healing can happen in a 45-minute, 60-minute conversation. It is absolutely, I mean, like years of healing can happen that fast.
Yep.
When you are given the opportunity to do it. So I want to thank you for providing safe spaces for people to do that, because that's a really sacred thing that you do. And I think that it's really important that people understand people aren't going to open up to just anybody.
Yeah.
They have to feel safe.
And honestly, Christina, that's the mission. That's what I want to do. I mean, the story projects, the content that we're creating, if you even want to call it that, that's wonderful. But my mission is to teach people how to do what I do, to learn how to create a safe space, to ask good questions, to have a conversation where there's active listening and participation. And then the clarity and wisdom that come from that, I see it as just like, this is something that I want to bring into homes, into schools, to businesses, to the UN, to help us get to how can we connect in a way that isn't forced, isn't filled with judgment and stigma and agenda. It can truly just be a place where I can look at you, you can look at me, create that safety between us. And even if you have differing views and different, the polarization in our country is just crazy right now. But to be able to hold that space with someone who differs from you, and to be able to walk away and say, okay, I don't agree with you, but I get you. I understand you now. I've seen your heart, and you know what? We actually have a connection because our parents are from the same place. Something that we can hold on to, that we can maybe build from later and say, okay, we're not going to fix this big problem now, but we've created an avenue of where we can go potentially. And that's where I feel like we're just losing the ability to do that right now. We're not even getting to that space of conversation, let alone making it safe. And so that's really the mission of what I want to share with people, is like, you got to want to show up. You got to want to connect. And if you're choosing not to, which I just feel, unfortunately, a lot of people, they either see it as too hard, too beyond them, too uncomfortable. I'm like, well, you got to get uncomfortable in order for growth to happen. Growth is painful.
Yes.
But once you do it and once you experience it, it could be life-changing.
Absolutely life-changing. Hello, Facebook user. I don't know your name, but hi. I'll get to Amy in just a moment. Lorena says, I've been writing my story for over a year and it drops me to my knees. Then I run away from it. What would you how do you talk to someone like that to encourage them to be able to do what they feel they need to do?
I mean, the first thing I would say to her is I would congratulate her and just be grateful for the fact that she shows up to write. And even if it's just a few words or a few lines or a page or two, again, I'm not concerned about the finished product. You know,
Right.
If somebody wants to write a book and share their story, that's great. That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
But let's get to the story first. Let's birth this thing that I know has been percolating inside. And Lorena sounds like it's been percolating for a long time, and it's a painful percolating that's going on. I would encourage her to, number one, just create that safe space for herself, to give herself tons and tons of grace and love of the fact that she's being courageous enough to even attempt to write it. And I would just to say to her, kind of what we talked about before, like, think of somebody in your life, or maybe somebody who you can picture who would be touched by your story, who you feel like can help. The pain of writing it can ease the pain that somebody's in right now, to experience it, to hear it, to feel it. And I would encourage her to keep going for that person, but mainly for herself, and just what's going to come from it, of just feeling that sense of completion and just that release, and whether or not it even sees the light of day for herself, for Lorena, just I would just have her focus on just her why is her, and then the person that she can change and help change through her story.
Awesome.
To keep going.
And Amy Lynn is a dear friend of mine, and she said, I strive to be like that, to be a safe space. And I can tell you, Amy Lynn, you are a safe space. You are definitely a safe space. One of the most open people I have ever met. And I think that's beautiful. And Lorena, I just want to add to what Gregg said was, don't worry about it being a book. It's your journal. Just journal. Just get it out however you need to get it out. And I'm very much like Gregg. I self-edit as I'm writing, and it slows me down. And sometimes it stops me in my tracks because it's like, I'm tired of making mistakes. You know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because that's what editors are for anyway, if I intend to publish it. So make all the mistakes you want to. Nobody cares in the original writing.
And that's what my work is. It is, I call it a very messy first draft of what we're doing, but it's a foundation to build from. You know, for someone like Lorena, for people who just, you know, the process of writing is something, you know, is admirable. And I think most people would love to be a better writer, but it's hard. It's hard, but it's also a lonely practice to do. And so I love to provide the support and the guidance and the accountability of again, it's like coaching.
Yep.
But I also think that it's the questions that come, that maybe you're thinking of the story this way, and I'm bringing just a wider perspective of different questions in that, again, you know the answers to. And some people need just a little bit of kind of, we go around to get to the core instead of going right down there, which I know is hard.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. We have Christine Mullaney here. My favorite line to share with friends is, I see you, whenever they are sharing with me. Knowing that sharing with others for me is that I see them with my eyes open and in my heart. And I think that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
So beautiful.
Yeah. I got you is another expression that I think really hits people in the heart to, you know, it's okay. Whatever you're going through, I got you. I got you. I see you. There you are. And when we can do that for each other, that's connection. That is,
we all want that
connection. Yeah.
We all want to feel that from another person. you know, and I think that we as humans, we all want the same things. We want love, we want abundance, we want to be treated with respect. But it has to start with ourselves. And that's so much of what this work is about, is looking at yourself with love.
Yeah.
Treating yourself with respect, honoring the voice and the story that you have inside you, and then amplifying that out, you know, to whomever. But I just, again, in that sacred space with somebody, it's something that a lot of people struggle with, you know.
It really
They'll say, you know, I'm focused on my self-care and my self-development. And then I'll ask them a question like, so who are you? And they'll start telling me, well, I'm a doctor. I'm like, no, not what you do, but who are you? Like, what makes you you? What are your values? What are your characteristics? What makes you tick? And they struggle. They're like, wow, I don't really know. And then I'll say, how can you develop and care for what you don't already know? What are you developing then? So I'm really about helping people answer that question of who are you? And I think that through this process of storytelling and questioning and just that openness, people astound themselves half the time. They share and they like go, what did I just say? Because that sounded really smart. And I'll say, it was amazing. We recorded it. Don't worry, we didn't lose it. Because that's where growth happens. That's where change happens. That's where transformation occurs. You got to know where you're at in order to know where you're going. So.
Right. You have to know your starting point. Absolutely. Absolutely. Lorena said, it's pretty much just journaling. It's a foundation. I know it could help people like me who are so addicted to being abused to step out of it.
Keep going. Just
wow. Yeah. That is
stay
a powerful
strong,
statement.
be brave. Yeah. So beautiful, Lorena.
Yeah. That is a powerful, powerful statement. And I think that's something that I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole, but that's really powerful to say people who are addicted to being abused. I mean, that's a bold statement, and definitely something that it can help other people, but let it help you first.
Yeah.
And I think that's, you know, it's, I'll equate it to addicts, alcoholics, getting clean, getting sober, however you want to say it. To me, it's all the same thing. And I'm speaking as someone who is. So, you know, people step into recovery and then all of a sudden they want to save the world, but they haven't really taken the time to heal themselves. And I feel like part of what you do is give people space to heal themselves.
Without a doubt. It has to start there. It does. Yeah. You know, people who have a message for the world, I'll say, what does that message mean for you? You know, connect to that first, feel it, own it, embrace it.
Yeah.
Now amplify it.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. I think they used to call that putting the cart before the horse. Something like that.
Is that what that means?
Is that what that means? Something like that. I don't know.
I like it.
Courtney said, I wrote my kids little notes all over in notebooks or books, picture books, telling them how I feel about them and the love I have. I feel they will have it when they need it.
Oh, that's so good.
That is wonderful.
I hope they're keeping every single one of those, because there's going to be a time where they're going to want those back.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. That time will definitely come without a doubt. Okay, Greg, if someone wants to reach out to you and have you have a discovery session with them, how do they reach you?
I'd say the easiest, the platform I tend to use the most is Facebook. So you can just look me up there at Gregg Gonzales, Gregg, Gonzales with an S, or you can just look up the Speakeasy Method. The website is thespeakeasymethod.co for Colorado. I love meeting new people. I love to learn from every person that I meet with, because every person is unique and different. And even if it's just a chat, answer a few questions. Maybe if you've got a project you've been struggling with and wanted, just some guidance on how to get started. I'm not a transactional person. I'm about help and giving. And so for me, my time in just those small segments is something that I treasure.
Yeah. So all of your information has been popped up in the chat rooms. all of the chat rooms. so, so we got Facebook, we got YouTube, we got whatever this little purple thing is here. Oh, somebody sent me a note. We are in sync. Okay, cool. So all of the Speakeasy Method is up there, and then you can also get a hold of Gregg on Facebook. And we misspelled Gregg's name like 3 times in the process of getting him on the show. So if you want the spelling, I now have it, and I now have the correct spelling, both first and last names. So Gregg Gonzales, and I am just so honored that you agreed to come on the show when I asked you to come on the show, because
I wouldn't miss it.
I met you, I don't know, more than a year ago in what was that? That was
It
I don't
was
know,
some
some kind
group.
of an online meeting or something. Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I wanted to connect with you then, and we kept missing each other. And I'm like, oh, well, whatever. Whenever it's supposed to happen, it will. And then boom,
Right.
here we are,
Here we
a
are.
little more than a year later. And we've got some great stuff going out to people. And I really thank you for coming on and sharing that. For our Facebook friends, here is Gregg's page. So they just popped up your Facebook page. So everyone can get a hold of you here.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it is wonderful. And you are really easy to talk to. So, if someone
Thanks.
has social anxiety or what we're calling trust issues, you're so easy to talk to. I can't imagine that anxiety would get in the way. Like, it would just be you're really good at holding a safe space. And that's
Thank
an
you.
amazing thing to be able to do.
I appreciate that.
Was there anything else that you wanted to share with us? We have about 8 minutes left.
Well, I mean, I just wanted to just share my gratitude to you for inviting me and to be a part of your amazing show and the work that you're doing. I admire.
Thank you.
So I want to thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. A very gentle soul, Gregg. That was Courtney. You are a very gentle soul.
Oh, thank you, Courtney.
He really is a very gentle soul. I very much appreciate that.
I do the work on myself, so this takes daily practice to stay in this the energy of just connection. Again, we talked about this. It's how you choose to show up, and there was a time when I did not choose to show up. I was very unconscious to it. I just kind of expected it, but I think that it came through my own healing journey of feeling disconnected from myself that this work kind of evolved. And so now to be able to do this for a living, to be able to hold space, to ask questions, to conduct these interviews. And again, it's just for whatever the reason is. It could be fun and creative. It could be healing. It could be transformative. It's just, it's a joy. And it just came kind of by chance. So I'm just doing it.
I love that. I love that. Let's talk a little about the healing journey, because I think that people who step out and offer themselves the way you do and the way I do, there's a healing journey behind that. Unconscious people don't get there. People who haven't done the work don't last very long trying to help other people, because you can only take it as far as you've gone. And when people are doing their work every day, and I know like Lorena and Courtney and a bunch of other people in here, Jamie Lynn and a bunch of, I'm sorry, Lee, and I don't know, I can't remember everybody, but these are people that I know are doing the work, the inner work. They're taking a good hard look at themselves, and they're being gentle about it, and they're being kind about it. And I think that that's something important that I would like for people to hear and understand. When you're doing your inner work, you have to be very clearly honest with yourself, but you don't have to be brutal about it, because being brutal about it does not heal anything. That's my opinion, but people, you may disagree with me. I don't know, but I think in doing our own inner work, that's the only way that we can really do the outer work that we do.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
It has to come from within. It really does.
It does. And that takes quiet time, and that takes sometimes journaling, and sometimes that takes meditation, and sometimes that takes just biting your tongue.
Yeah. Well, if I could just share, my practice. It's a daily practice that I do, that I'm
Absolutely.
committed to, that really just reinforces not only what I do for this work, but just in how I show up for my kids, and the energy that I try to bring out in people when I'm at the grocery store or just meeting people for the first time. It's being committed to doing the work each day that nobody sees, right? It's kind of like the ball player who goes to practice and doing all the drills that they've done since Little League, and then going on the field and playing in the big game. I think of and I'll just share this with everybody. I call it my lifesavers. And so SAVERS is an acronym. And this isn't something I created on my own. It was from a book, Morning Miracle, that I'm sure a lot of people know. But the first S is silence. That's meditation. A is affirmations. V is visioning or manifestation. E is exercise or movement. R, reading. And then the last S is scribing or journaling. And so for me, that sounded like a ton to try and possibly take on in a morning. But I found a way to stack some of those together. So this way I don't think of it as multitasking, because each one is done with intention and attention to it. But I can get all of that done before I'm getting myself ready for the day. And I literally could not get through the day if I didn't do that. And that just comes from just making the choice to do it and being disciplined, holding myself accountable. All of that together, I think, is part of my connection to myself, which I was not doing before. I was in the wellness field for 20 plus years, and I was probably the most disconnected I'd ever been, because I was just a machine doing my work. Right. And now that I've had a chance to just be more reflective, be more focused on myself, get to know myself, fully. And that happens through that daily work. So I just encourage everybody, if it's any one of those savers, pick one practice that you could commit to and try it for 5 days, try it for 10 days, try it for a month, and then maybe add a second or a third, and reach out to me if you want to talk about like a good morning and evening practice, because I call it a daily practice. I'd love to hear what others' suggestions are, because that's the work that's done behind the scenes, and how you show up for your family, for your work, for your friends, and for the world, So I see that as being such a huge piece of what it means to stay connected.
Thank you for sharing that, because on this show and on a lot of other shows that I've listened to over the years, even different podcasts, different radio shows, or even different TV shows, where people say you got to do the inner work, but nobody really explains what that means. So thank you for bringing that SAVERS to the forefront to explain what that means, because otherwise people are just going, okay, do the inner work. I still don't know what he's talking about. Yeah. So it's important that people have some idea what that means, or what you mean by it, or what we mean by it. Lorena did say, when I started my healing journey, at the beginning, I beat myself up. Now I love grace and ease and just forgive myself. And I love that. That is one of my mantras. My life moves with ease and grace. That's one of my mantras every day. My life moves with ease and grace. And especially if I find myself electronics, the bane of my existence some days is electronics. But even with that, if I just sit back and move away from it a little bit, disconnect my energy from it, and say, my life moves with ease and grace, and it just gets so much better instantly.
If I can just acknowledge Lorena again and just say that doesn't just happen overnight. You don't just wake up one day and suddenly you have grace and ease, and
it takes work.
That takes work. It's hard, and it takes discipline. And that discipline is what I think a lot of people miss. There's a difference between being motivated and being disciplined, in my opinion.
Yes.
Motivation is something that, like, okay, I'm motivated to get out of bed and go do my SAVERS, whatever. But like, you had a late night, maybe you had one too many, that motivation can go down quite a bit, and it's hard to force yourself out. But if you have discipline, that late night is just a pipsqueak of a thing, because I'm getting up at 5 a.m. to start my SAVERS. I don't care how I feel. I did this to myself. This is going to make me feel better.
There you go.
So that's where I feel like someone like Lorena, just, you have to choose. Number one, you have to make the decision and choose what is it that you want. And then ask yourself, what am I willing to do to get it?
That's a really important question. And the answer to that is paramount to what you're willing to do.
Yep.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I forgot. There was something else I was going to say, but that's okay. I forgot it. Gregg, thank you so much for being on the show and for sharing
welcome.
all of your wisdom and your gentle energy with all of us. And next week, I don't have a plan, guys. We're winging it next week.
I may be back. You never know. She may say,
He might be back.
Filled.
I don't know. I might be winging it from my car in a campground. Who knows? But I'll be here, and I'll see y'all next week. Thanks again, Gregg.
Thank you. My pleasure.
The truth is here and now on WLTK-DB Talk Radio at WLTK-DB.com.